Kendrick is
We're gonna
actually
see. We're gonna
so
see.
it's
We're
not.
gonna see. We're gonna see. Let me start the show. Let me start the show. What up, everybody? It's your boy
Well,
Shane G.
this is off topic, but on topic.
We go ahead. Go ahead. What's up?
Because I feel like Kendrick, because of Kendrick's like Drake exposed Kendrick with this what was it TDE with Top Dog. So
yeah.
So there's two versions. We gonna call pre Kendrick, well Kendrick pre and Kendrick post, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna say the Drake is the dash, right, of the pre and post of what we're talking about with Kendrick.
Okay.
Pre Kendrick, because of his contract and his deals and the way his money was set up and just how it was all with his numbers and streaming and all of that, I don't feel like you're ever gonna hear pre Kendrick ever again. Like you're like even on tours on like, but new Kendrick going forward, where he's his own money maker, his own entity now, and his own revenue stream, you're gonna see a lot new. So I feel like it's almost a reemergence of Kendrick, that he's gonna come out like he hadn't been out before because now he gets to see more of his money.
So he's 2 Chainz now instead of being Titty Boy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Best way to put exactly.
All right. Well, we're going to figure it out. Welcome, everybody. This is the Bar Exam. I am today's host, Shane G, joined by my guys, Mr. Marcus TV, the Eric G Life. Allie is a little under the weather today, so we gave her the day off. You know what I'm saying? We're going to make sure that, she's all good for next week. But we have an interesting discussion to have today. So what I want to know, first of all, we have to break down. We're going to break down this concept of the big three, right? Mm-hmm. The conversation for real started obviously around Drake, Kendrick, Cole. That was when we kind of first started hearing the term big three, even before Kendrick said it in the song that kicked off the beef. Like people were just calling them that, right? So I want to break down starting in the early 90s, because that's pretty much where my frame of reference starts, the strongest frame of reference, I should say, for hip hop. But I want to know if you guys agree with these big threes, first of all, that I present. And then I want to figure out who the new big three is. And when I say new, I mean your first project came out after the year 2010. That's the criteria for new. So if you had a project out in 2009, you belong to an older class. If you had a project out anytime before 2010. But if your first project was 2010 or later, you're in the running. So with all that being said, this is my personal big three of each era. I'll stop after I lay each one out. Y'all let me know if y'all agree or disagree. Cool? All right.
Yep.
So for the early 90s, the big three I have is Biggie, Nas, and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, I don't have an argument there. There's something to be said that maybe you could slot Ice Cube in that spot
instead of Nas.
Yeah, maybe instead of Nas.
Okay.
And see where you put Snoop, I put Dre.
See, for me, Dre doesn't count only because he wasn't known predominantly to be a rapper. You know what I'm saying? Like, The Chronic was almost like a Snoop album because Snoop was the star of that album, and then Doggy Style came out right after, which, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I gave it to Snoop more than Dre.
So I guess I agree with that, but that's also why I would put Dre, because without Dre there is no Snoop. So
sure.
So I would say it's Dre, and especially in the early, because yes, and it's also when we go.
I'm just talking rap though. I'm not talking
when we go through the whole list.
And,
I don't feel like Dre is left off.
Yeah, I got Dre left off. But
yeah,
okay.
I can't leave Dre off.
So you're putting Dre. So your big three then for the early 90s would be, because nobody dispelled Biggie, so we're leaving Biggie on. Okay. I had Biggie, Nas, and Snoop. Eric, you're saying Biggie, Ice Cube, and Snoop?
I'm saying there's an argument there that Ice Cube could be slotted in there, but I agree ultimately with Nas and Snoop being there.
Okay. So you agree with mine, Marcus, and you're saying replace Snoop with Dre. because of the overall impact and based on the fact that without Dre, there is no Snoop.
Yes.
Okay.
And because I guess I know we're also going mid-90s next. I mean,
yep.
So with the mid-90s, you clearly have to have Pac in there, right?
Yes.
Okay, so without saying what having Pac, that is the East Coast, West Coast, right there, and that defines the mid-90s. You know, so and with the Dre was kept out of that. And you know what I'm saying? Like it was Suge and it was Diddy. Like it was not like Dre had no relevance in that battle or in that beef or it got in there. So that's why I was and where Snoop kind of did, but I also couldn't. That's why I said what I said before.
Okay. Well, people in the comments, y'all let us know. You know what I'm saying? Which list do you agree with for the early 90s? And or is there somebody else that we should have put in there? You know, let us know. But for the mid 90s, as you said, gotta have Pac. I have Biggie again, and I have Jay-Z.
Yeah, I can rock with that.
I'm gonna rock with it.
Okay.
I'm not gonna want to rock with it.
But no, throw another name out there that could go there.
Yeah, I was gonna say slot somebody else in that could be in there.
So for me, early night, because see, I wasn't supposed to be listening to rap at that time. Right. You know, like that's where it kind of comes. So when
this was over at the cousin's house only type thing,
right? I wasn't supposed. I was influenced heavily South. So to not say like even I can't put 3-6 as a dominator, but they were definitely on that underground. Like if you had cousins who smoked, you know, this is what they was listening to. You know what I'm saying? So it was more that almost forbidden fruit type of like what you listening to? Oh, I'm changing. I'm sorry, man. You know, that type of So to put Big on there twice, that's where I'm like, I feel like I can't say it was a UGK. I can't say it was just a 3-6. I'm just gonna say it was just that underground South movement for me. Because it was so
right. And that's what makes this conversation hard because I'm trying to boil it down to 3 specific artists. You know what I'm saying? So, like, for example, in that time frame, because like there's 2 years that kind of blur into 2 different categories, right? 1994, that's mid 90s, but it's also early 90s. And then 1996, that's mid 90s, but it's also late 90s. So that 3-year period is a little weird. You know what I mean? Like as far as how you categorize it. But for me, I'm mostly thinking like 95. You know what I mean? And by then, Pac was getting ready to sign to 95, 96, because that was his death row era. And that was when, you know, he had got shot and when he beat the case. So his name was like way up there. You know what I mean? So people was like ready for the album. And then Big, Life After Death, you know, everybody considers that a classic. You know what I'm saying? So you still, you know, and he was doing all the, if we're talking accolades in between, then he put Lil' Kim on, who ended up going on to become Lil' Kim. You know what I'm saying? He put on Junior Mafia, which they didn't necessarily pan out as a group, but they had some songs that still get play on the radio. Get Money being one of them.
I gotta look.
You know, so Biggie, I feel like if we're gonna make the impact conversation, then he did that too. He brought his camera on. There's no camera, or there's no cam without Biggie. So
hold on, I gotta look it up to see when it came out.
Yeah, because I'm like, if Scarface came out, that's an argument. You know what I mean? If Outkast was out, you could maybe argue for them. I think they dropped in 96, right? Or was it 94? 94 and 96, if I'm not mistaken. So you could throw them in the mid 90s. That's the thing. I'm trying to think of like who was huge at that time. Right. And it seemed like a lot of people were on their come up in the mid 90s, but nobody was huge then.
So yeah, I had to make sure I spoke correctly. It was July 5th, 1995 on Ruthless Records, East Eternal 99, Bone Thugs.
Okay, that's an
like,
argument. So you
yeah,
could throw Bone
yeah.
in that.
I gotta put. So yeah, I gotta put Big, Pac, Bone, because at the same time too, as much as rap was preference, it was also regional. If you didn't have, it was really, if, like I said, I had cousins down south. So when I came to when I was in Missouri, St. Louis, nobody was on anything that was on Memphis. But if you had a cousin that was in Texas, they was on UGK. And then if you knew somebody, they weren't mainstream, wasn't mainstream.
Right.
So, but Bone was
mainstream back then just meant that you had a video on MTV.
Correct. And,
yeah.
And nobody, and even though he was never a big three, who dominated early 90s, mid 90s, late 90s, even early 2000s, was Too Short.
Now, did he ever dominate, though? I guess that would be my question. Did he ever dominate, or did he just always have consistent runs? And then, because to me, Too Short never became mainstream until he hooked up with Lil Jon, in my opinion, which was like 15 years into his career.
It was 15 years in his career, but it was also, if you was a fan, he was doing mixtape numbers then on cassettes. There was no, he was doing streaming numbers on cassettes. There was no, like, his numbers during his run was unheard of because of what it was. We can't really
quantify it now. That's the
now, because they'll say like, oh yeah, the dollar in 1940 is worth $6.75 today. I can't tell you what one cassette for Too Short was back in the 80s. I mean,
right, how many streams that equates to now or whatever the fuck. Yeah.
But I feel like definitely Too Short had the rumblings through the entire country almost.
See, for me, I put E40 above Too Short. But that might also be a regional thing because we listened to a lot of E40 in Detroit when I was growing up.
Yeah.
So that might be a regional thing too. I don't know. That's interesting.
So it's kind of, I'll put Too Short and E40 the same way you put 3 6 and Project Pat. You didn't have one without the other. And if you was a fan of one, you found your way to the other.
Right.
So I can't, because then you splitting hairs nitpicking.
Well, yeah, stand on it. Pick one. Yeah. Who you going with?
I'm going with Bone. I said Bone.
Okay, Bone.
Yeah,
okay,
Bone,
so
Bone was,
your big three for the mid-90s is Tupac, Biggie, and Bone.
Tupac, Biggie, Bone. Yes, correct.
Okay.
So there's no Jay-Z in the mid-90s.
Well, Reasonable Doubt dropped in 96, so
yeah, I don't.
Yeah, he was on Biggie's. He was on Biggie projects and stuff. So, but I got you though. I understand. You're gonna hear the name Jay a lot going forward for a while. You know what I'm saying? Late 90s, Jay, DMX, Juvenile.
Yeah, I don't make the only other person I could think. Oh wait, no. Nah, I'm thinking early 2000s. Never mind. Yeah, that's good for the late 90s for me.
So, because I think the very first song that I remembered the high school band playing at a game was the Rough Riders anthem on the quads.
Okay, and that was hard.
That was like, right. That was like turn up in the bleachers. Oh my God, what's happening? Mm-hmm. So like DMX definitely dominated. And I'm the same what we just said about Too Short, E40 is the same way I'm gonna give you with Juvenile, because the Juvenile went the whole like, just because could you put Juvenile and Master P? Preference. Like,
sure. Here's the difference though. Here's the difference between them two. I think Master P's movement, what No Limit was doing, was they were almost doing, for the lack of a better word, like how we play the internet game now, where you play the algorithm game and you just flood the algorithm, and then eventually a bunch of people are going to see your shit and, the numbers will grow up like that. That's almost what P was doing. He was just putting out so much product. Like every week an album was coming out, you know what I'm saying? And it was doing numbers. But he only had like Make 'Em Say that was a hit. Like nationally, I mean. Yeah. Make 'Em Say was a hit nationally. Ice Cream Man was a hit regionally. You know what I'm saying? Like niggas wasn't really bumping Ice Cream Man like that outside of the South and probably Oakland, because that's where he was at the time. But you know, we wasn't really listening to that. Whereas Make 'Em Say that got us. You know, a couple of joints like in that era, but it was kind of a brief window where he had like hit songs. It was more so the albums. Whereas Juvenile had Juvenile had Back That Ass Up. You know what I'm saying? Juvenile was on like these monster radio hits from Cash Money, and it was Hot Boy shit, but he was positioned as the star of the Hot Boys too.
Yeah.
So that's why I give the late 90s. I throw Juvenile up there because he changed the sound of rap almost, him and Manny Fresh and what they was doing, like, because it sounded crazy. The high shit, like all off
nobody was making music like that.
We was like what? Nobody. Yeah.
I will give you. I'm gonna give Juvenile some flowers. I will give you that High and Back That Ass Up might be the greatest 1A, 1B follow-up single of all time, possibly.
Maybe. Yes.
Of just yours, like, because even if you have, okay, you say, oh, well, people forget. First of all, everybody knows Back That Ass Up. That was his
everybody. Come on, man. Still gets played to this day.
Right there. So to say, and then to have his first do more than that. His first with High to surpass, like, the only thing that comes, I can't even tell you what comes to mind.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so that
might be the greatest 1-2 punch.
And this was a big deal at the time, you know, and I know a lot of niggas from the South a lot of times would be like, man, them up north niggas, they ain't special, blah, blah, blah. Why you gotta, you know, quit sucking New York dick and that type shit, right? But at the time, it was a big deal to have a lyricist from New York hop on a Southern niggas track. The fact that Jay-Z did the remix for High was crazy at the time. It was like, oh shit, like, you know what I'm saying? Like now that's whatever, that's regular. New York niggas rap like South niggas now, but like in 98, that shit was crazy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's a big deal. And I feel like, you know, that should be acknowledged as part of it as well.
100%.
So those are my three.
I agree.
JDMX, Juvenile. It seems like we kind of agree on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Marcus, you mostly agree on that, or you said
on the late,
it's a toss up between him and P, basically.
But the toss up only goes for Make 'Em Say versus Back That Ass Up. I can't put Ice Cream Man above High, so then I would edge it out to Juvenile.
There you go. Okay.
I can go you know, I can give you one. I can give you Back That Ass Up and Make 'Em Say all day, but yeah, that cancels out. Man, Ice Cream Man doesn't come close.
Hootie Hoo was a banger.
It was.
Hootie Hoo was up there.
It was.
That was actually, if from my memory, and I could be off because this is 20 something years ago, you know what I'm saying? But from my memory, Hootie Hoo was actually the song that kind of got our attention, at least in my area, up, you know, at first. And it was like, oh, okay, like this is kind of, you know, because it was a little bit faster tempo, you know what I'm saying? And in Detroit, we like a faster tempo. So so that got us first, and then Make 'Em Say undropped.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, that was the order. So I think that's, you know, so it was like the introduction of like, oh shit, okay, I like this, you know what I'm saying? Almost like the Hot Boys before Han came out. The Hot Boys, them niggas is the Hot Boy. You know what I'm saying? That's not a hit, but it was a great introduction song. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of look at Hootie Hoo like that, but I almost forgot about that. That shit was a slap. So
yeah, it was.
Shout out P. Early 2000s, once again, I have Jay-Z. I also have Nas, and I also have Eminem.
So on this one, this is where I was going to throw in that besides Jay, really, I'm going to try to throw in some other names so that we don't run into too many duplicates on here. But I feel like Jay is one of the only people that can claim multiple ones of these eras. So in lieu of that, I'm gonna throw in, instead of Nas, I'm gonna say Ja Rule.
That's a good one. That's an excellent one.
For the early 2000s, yeah, I'm throwing Ja Rule in there.
That's an excellent pick.
I'm gonna tell you why you can't throw Ja Rule in there, and you have to keep it as Jay and Nas, because Ether was 2001.
You know what?
Oh yeah,
I will give you
was
that.
where my frame of reference came from, because Takeover and Ether both came out in 2001. So I was
will
like,
give you that. Yep.
never mind. No, not never mind. Because that's one song. You know what I'm saying? Now, granted, Stillmatic classic album came out at that time as well. Yes. I love that album. I love Nah, you know this, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, but same here.
We do have to think about that catalog that Ja Rule was coming with before 50 came. That shit was crazy before 50 came.
And 50 didn't come until unprecedented.
It was crazy.
So I'm not going to discount Ja Rule before. I'm going to jump ahead real quick and say mid 2000s when you introduce 50, you say Ja Rule.
See, so, I see it differently. I feel like Ja had a run and then 50 came and squashed it and then went on his run.
Well, he did. He did.
It was never simultaneous. It was it was, you know what I'm saying?
So when you say like big three of so when the beef came, you had like I said, rap was still regional and it was still segmented. You had to pick a side, you know.
Yeah.
And because of that, there were Ja Rule fans, but nobody stayed that way when 50 came. So, but they were together. Like, you only hated Ja Rule because of 50.
Sure.
You know, he had fans and he had music and, you know, he was around. But I don't, it's almost without Ja Rule. I won't say that there is no 50 Cent without Ja Rule, but it immensely helped.
Oh, for sure. Well, let me give you my next three.
Okay.
And let's see how you agree with this, because again, Jay's in there, so I'm just gonna go on and say it. But the next two names, 50 Cent and Nelly.
Yeah. I gotta get put Nelly on the list. I mean, that put St. Louis on the map.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was without question the claim to fame, and you know it went. And I will say this is when the earliest conversation of numbers came in, because
he went diamond, right?
Yeah, when Nelly was doing like that was the first time the popularity of a song was quantified by a number too. You know, Nelly did this, Nelly did that. And we of course, it was like, he did what? You know, but that was the first time that and the numbers solidified an artist, especially from here, because no one knew St. Louis. No one.
And then for 50, really, on that side, he was really the one that basically revolutionized what the mixtape series was going to look like going into the late 2000s, because like right before he went on his crazy run, he was putting out all these tapes that were like original beats and like full projects that were just albums before the album, and nobody was really doing that yet. Before that, everybody was still rapping on like Clue mixtapes or rapping over other people's beats and shit like that. But 50 was kind of the first one to come along and be like, nah, you can put a tape out by yourself and with all original music, and it can still be just as hard as the album.
Well, the interesting thing about that is he did it like in a weird order, because he started doing music like that. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, Power of the Dollar was supposed to come out on a label, and it never did. But, you know, that album came out. And then he had Guess Who's Back. And that one had original music on it. And that was never put out on a label. But that was all, you know, original beats and stuff. But then he got into the more traditional mixtape flow. This is all 90s stuff.
What year are we on now?
Oh, we're in the mid 2000s right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm just kind of talking about like 50's mixtape career, because that is an interesting point. Because he started off like his first two projects, I want to say, were mostly, if not all, original music. And then he came out with the 50 Cent is the Future mixtape, which was, I think, the first mixtape that had Lloyd Banks and Tony Ayo on it. So that was the introduction to G Unit. And that was more of a blend that had some original music, but then it had some like just straight up freestyle type shit on there too. And then after that, they started the G Unit radio series. And that was basically them just remixing whatever was hot on the radio at the time and making their own versions of it. And then that was the formula really until Drama and them got raided, and then Jeezy came and was like, we can do original shit again. And then it's been that ever since. But yeah. So definitely 50. So Nelly for sure. And then Jay again, because he was still just on that solid ass run. That was Black album time. You know what I'm saying? Like, so.
Yeah, again, Jay doesn't come off this list for a while.
That was mid 2000s, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Now we're going to the late 2000s.
Hold on.
And I have I got Wayne.
No. Before you go there.
Oh, go ahead.
You got to take a pause and acknowledge what happened in that time frame.
Go ahead.
Steve Jobs came out with the iPod.
Yes.
And technology changed right there. That's the moment it changed. And then that's when the Napster, that's when the
iTunes,
LimeWire, you know, that's the origins of streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So because on your next one you said you have Wayne, Kanye, and Jay, right?
Yes, sir.
Why do we have Wayne? It's because because of the Squad Up series. We can't negate that.
Squad Up series, the Drought is Over.
That came out in the early 2000s, though, didn't it? The Squad Up.
But it came out because of the flooded Napster and streaming numbers. It was never that shit was. It was like Soul playing DVD when you was ripping. You know, it was everywhere.
For sure.
I think Squad Up came out in like 2005.
Yeah, I think that was early. That was pretty early. But in the late 2000s, though, you do have Carter 3 comes out. You have
Dedication series.
The Dedication series, you know, 2 and later mostly is what we would focus on, because I think 1 came out kind of early, like maybe 03, 04, something like that.
1 came out in like 06, I think.
No, a bunch of them came out after that. I'm just saying the very first Dedication, I think, was a little bit earlier, because he still had Little Dreads. That came out around the time the Carter 1 came out. So,
you're right. So that's like, okay, I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? But then Carter 2 and Dedication 2, which is like the one that really everybody kind of started looking at Wayne like, okay, nah, he really might be the best nigga alive. Like, this shit crazy. And then the Carter 2 came out. Carter 3 comes out. No Ceilings comes out.
The Drought
comes out. Drought. Yeah, exactly. All of that stuff. And he's just building. And at the same time, he's killing every feature that he's on. Like, this is the rise of the DJ Khaled crew, kind of. You know what I'm saying? With Fat Joe and at the time, it was like Trick Daddy and Pitbull and them niggas. You know, the Miami squad. But now it's like basically just Baby Wayne, Rick Ross, Khaled. Like, right. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so I don't disagree, but I also feel like there has to be an asterisk. Because I don't disagree. Wayne, first of all, might have the LeBron type of career that we talk about, where it's a Hall of Fame career in Miami, Hall of Fame career in Cleveland, Hall of Fame career in Los Angeles. You know, those three separate career. Like, he gets 3 statues. Right. You know, mixtape Wayne early. I cannot take away Wayne. Cannot take away Kanye. I feel the crunk era has to be acknowledged.
Okay. What artists out of there do you?
I'm taking Jay off, but I'm not discrediting Jay because he's been mentioned before.
Of course, yeah, that's fair.
So yes, I have, like, that was Little John, like that was the crunk era, was the crunk era.
Yeah,
like that was hands to fist. Put that tree alone was its own genre, because
for sure,
and it's also never. I would love for the.
That's more of an earlier mid 2000s thing, though, isn't it? Lil Jon was popping in like 03, 04, right?
Not enough for me to take off Nelly.
I could see an argument for Jay being slotted out there, but still that's a hard sell because of the Black Album being in that year. But I mean, I could see an argument for like a Lil Jon or somebody like that.
Like if in the late 2000s, if you took out Jay and put in like a Jeezy or even a Gucci,
I was gonna make the argument.
I could see that. I could see that.
So, I was gonna say the argument for Jeezy more because I think as much as Gucci was extremely popping in the streets, I think he was just popping in the streets. I don't think his mainstream blow up didn't happen until like later to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas for me, sliding Jeezy in there makes more sense because at that time he was mainstream.
And even though it's trap, which is different than crunk, it's still a branch off of that tree.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So that way, because I don't know where you put Lil Jon at. I don't put him in the late 2000s personally, but I do see a spot for him in either the early or the mid, but I don't know who you take out. So that's my only, but I do want to give him some kind of credit, and I feel like you can kind of tangentially give him credit through Jeezy. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah. I think you kind of answered your own question. I think you said trap is not crunk, but it's from that tree. So I think give it to Lil Jon in the same way that trap music, because you have to put T.I. in there too. And I think if you put Lil Jon, and then if you say yes, but from that tree you get a T.I., that's fine. Because I think you answered yourself, which is clear, because to have not say T.I. is on this like crazy when you're looking at it like just the whole list in totality.
But just remember that we're only looking at 3 artists from every era, though. That's the thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, there's a lot of these eras that have mad successful acts, and it's hard to, like, the mid and late 2000s, there's so many niggas that realistically you could pick from. Like, maybe not realistically as a big 3, but there's arguments. Like, there's an argument for Ludacris. There's an argument for Game around that time. There's an argument for T.I. around that time.
Yeah.
There's, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's when UGK started popping again. So there's an argument for Bun because he was going crazy on the features around that time. So there's mad people, you know what I'm saying? That's why, again, in the comment section, please give us your top 3s of, these time frames. But we're almost to the present. So early 2010s, this is obvious. Kendrick, Drake, Cole.
Yeah, no debate on that one.
Yeah, like I don't even think that, again, they're the reason we're even having this conversation. So I don't even think we need to spend much time on that. But okay, so current big 3. This is what me and Eric decided for 2 of those big 3. Travis Scott, Future. Both of their first albums came out after 2010, either 2010 or later. Those are probably the 2 biggest names that have the most amount of influence on all the new artists that we hear. Eric, you can maybe do a little bit better when it comes to numbers. I don't know, I'm not as familiar with their numbers, but I know Travis goes crazy on streaming and, stuff like that.
I would say after Dirty Sprite 2 is when Future really started hitting his mark on numbers. He always sells a lot. It's not to the degree that Travis does, because Travis does like damn near like Drake numbers at this point, and like Kendrick numbers damn near. So, but I would say that Future is like, he's not that far behind, like at all. Like if you give if Travis sells around 250 to 300 K in a first week, I would give Future like maybe 150 to 200 maybe at this point.
Okay. So yeah, to me, those are the 3 biggest those are the 2 biggest influences. I was debating whether or not to put Kendrick in that spot. And the only reason is, 1, because I put him in the first, the early 2010s big 3. And despite the fact that I have Jay on the list so many times, the reason why Jay was on the list so many times is because in that time period, he was the only nigga that was putting out an album every year. You know what I'm saying? Everybody else was taking time. So he had time, like he literally had the body of work to consistently be in the conversation throughout that whole 10 years. You know what I'm saying? He even rapped about it. So, whereas Kendrick, you could put him there because of the year that he's having right now, but are we giving him 15 years? Because again, this starts in 2010, remember. Are we giving him 15 years worth of praise because of what he's doing right now? Or are we actually arguing that over the last 15 years, he's proven to be, you know, as top 3 as Travis and Future? Or do you have another third pick?
I have, okay, there's some shit flying in this bitch. That's why I keep like looking like that. And like I just see it now, like I hear it, but it keep going like by this light, and I don't. It's a lot going on right now. That's why
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, and the motherfuckers be. I don't know if it came through the door or whatever the fuck it is, but it is definitely flying.
I know how I go.
What is it, a moth?
Oh, I think I can kill this bitch. Oh yeah, he's dead. I had to kill this sucker that was like flying. Ah, we don't see it right here. Oh.
This is what you get on the bar exam, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We commit insect murders out here.
Yeah.
Damn.
Right. See?
What is that thing?
I don't know, but it's dead. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, back to my list about who we was gonna talk about. So, early 10s, doesn't matter how you start or how you finish. I guess that kind of needs to be said too, because although I cannot debate the early 10s in Kendrick, Drake, and Cole, in the late 10s, I feel if it's not early 10s, it's late 10s. I feel like Gotti got to be on that list. And not of Gotti of late. Gotti then because of what he came, because Cocaine Musics came out in, hold on, it says 2008. It did numbers in 9 and 10 into that 9-10 threshold, kind of like what you was talking about, like with 96, you know, the early, you know, late and early. So that's when Gotti was on starting his run. I don't know if I'm not going to discount Future because
that's what I'm saying. If you really think about who had a bigger influence, Future or Yo Gotti, I think that's a pretty.
No, it's Future.
Yeah.
So it's one of those.
Who had bigger records? Future, Yo Gotti, Future, more. Gotti had some big ones. Let's not say he didn't have no big ones.
Some big ones, but
Future had more.
I think he might get left off then.
He might got it. That's the thing about these lists. These big threes is tricky.
Numbers wise, but that was the peak. That was the peak of Future.
Oh yeah,
when?
Sure.
You know,
2015.
When was
2016?
Yeah, it was all. I can't say it was the peak of Travis, but it gave Travis his fan base.
Travis's peak was when Astroworld came out, and that was in 2018.
Okay. And then I guess you cut it off after the 10s. It's no 20.
Yeah. No, it's 2010 until now.
This is including the 20s.
Yeah, it's 2010 till now. That was just my arbitrary cutoff point for what consists of modern.
Yeah, so after
your first album came out after 2010. So if your first album came out last year, that's after 2010. You straight?
Yeah, I don't know.
Are there any women that we would like to consider for a late 2010s potential?
Late 2010s or late 2020 plus? Because I'm
the same category right now. It's just who's the big three since 2010, and we got Travis and Future there. Who else goes?
If you were to slot a female in there,
I'm not saying you have to. I'm just saying, are we going to consider that? Is there anybody that we could?
You should. You definitely should.
So here, I think if we're going to go by numbers, you're going to put Meg first.
Okay.
Then you're gonna put Cardi next, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then numbers wise, when Glow came out, she went over both of them. So I
Okay.
mean, it's kind of like it was a progression.
Mm-hmm.
So to sit there and say Meg's not on the list, but Meg did numbers. We agree with that. And then Cardi was like, oh my God, Black and Yellow, like who is this?
And just the appeal of them as well. Like it's not like I want numbers to be considered for sure, but I also want to consider the fact that Meg is on all these commercials. That Meg is the WrestleMania theme this year. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Meg the Stallion is the WrestleMania theme song this year. You know what I'm saying? Or not the Travis is, I'm sorry, but she's the SmackDown theme song now. You know what I'm saying? So her music is getting played on WWE SmackDown every single week on Fox. Like that's crazy, you know, or well, it used to be Fox, now it's USA, but still, like, you know what I mean? Like, so that mainstream level of appeal. Whereas like Glow might have done more numbers, but I haven't seen her on no ads. I haven't seen McDonald's do a Glorilla meal yet. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's a different level of mainstream. I feel like that even with the numbers, people like Lotto and Glow and, you know, obviously, well, Sexy Red is a different case, but you know what I'm saying? Like people like that. And then Cardi only got the one album. So I'm like, I feel rough putting her in there because I'm like, I don't know if you got enough
even though
work.
It's a classic, but it's hard to make that argument.
She had something had to happen where she couldn't make music anymore, then we're having a different conversation. But you've been around. You're just not dropping music. So I can judge that.
I think you got to break it up, bro. I don't think you can just leave it at late 10s till present.
Well, no, it's just that we're going to have to revisit the list in 2030 and do one from 2020 to 2030.
Yeah, that's all. It's only because of the time frame that we're in right now.
Yeah. And the reason I say that too is because just like we mentioned streaming and the numbers and everything, the 2 years of 2020 to 2022 of COVID when everybody was in the house matters. You know, we consumed music different because we had to. Everybody did. Everybody was in the house listening to something. So, yeah, that's difficult, bro. That's like legit difficult just to put it down to 3. Because it's almost like your Mount Rushmore, in a sense.
Kinda, yeah. It's less than that. That's what makes it harder. You know what I'm saying? Because with Mount Rushmore, you get 4. And then with a top 5, you get a little bit of buffer room because it's pretty easy to get through 4. And then once you get to 5, it's a little iffy. But top 3
because 5 is always a gatekeeper.
Right.
The other reason why it's so hard for the late 10s going into the 2020s is because a lot of these artists that you could slot in that 3rd spot, they have these runs that are good runs and everything, and like they end up being successful. Like Lil Baby, for example, like when he was on his run, he was like the hottest nigga in the streets, and everybody was like calling him the next up and shit like that. But his fall off and how long it lasted, that is a major reason why he can't be in that 3rd spot, because it lasted, because that fall off was so crazy that you kind of you can't really ignore that. Now, if there is somebody that I'm thinking of that you could still slot in right now because of the timing that like he kind of just got locked up, but he still has enough material out there to where his name is relevant enough to be discussed in this list. To me, I think it's maybe possibly Lil Durk.
Before you put Durk,
I think you can make a strong case for Durk for a multitude of reasons. Number one, because of the obviously the Chicago influence and how much that spread across the rap industry. Number two, he came up during the era when Chief Keef was basically supposed to be the one that was going to be the breakout hottest nigga in Chicago, and then Durk ended up surpassing him later on and shit. And then obviously with the link up with Durk and King Von, like that was like a whole nother like part of the story to Durk's rise to ascension into where he is now. So I think all those things considered, and just like how tapped in he really is with pretty much everybody in the industry, I really think that you can't make a strong case for Dirk. And not only that, he got way better at rapping from when he first came out to where he's at right now. So those are my reasons that Dirk is a strong number 3 case if you want to put him there.
I don't disagree with you with Dirk, but I'm not a fan. I'm a fan of Dirk, but the artist I'm gonna say I wasn't a fan of, but I had to acknowledge his presence, and he was bigger than Dirk. Is YoungBoy, and I feel like
I can't put him there. You know how I feel about YoungBoy. I can't put him there.
But that's what I'm saying. That's how you feel about him, number wise.
Yes.
Number wise, YoungBoy is the closest thing, just numbers, not with just is the closest thing we've seen to Nelly.
Okay. Here's what I would say to that though. Does YoungBoy have any Grammys?
No. But he
Does
has
Dirk have any Grammys?
The one he paid for with Cole.
Okay, so yes, then.
Yeah.
Okay. Does YoungBoy have features with J. Cole?
Hey, he went on. That nigga said yes. Then that nigga got the jury. He got me on the stand.
You can phrase it how you want to. The answer is yes. That shit is in his career. Bye. So, does YoungBoy have a feature with J. Cole?
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if they do have a low-key one, but I don't think they do.
Low key, not a hit though.
Yeah,
No.
Not one that came to mind immediately. Okay, what about Drake?
No.
No. Okay, so YoungBoy, what mainstream artists is YoungBoy working with?
No, so I wouldn't.
Maybe Kodak.
Okay, so maybe Kodak. No,
I don't really think he's working with anybody for real. Because he can't.
Has YoungBoy been on The Breakfast Club?
No.
So
has he been on Sway?
I'm gonna let you finish because you're. I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do a Kanye. I'm gonna let you finish. No, he has not. He has not.
He hasn't. Okay.
No, you're you need the gavel. Where's your gavel?
I'm saying, like, so I'm just painting a picture. Whereas Dirk has done everything that I just said. So
Before that,
so star power again. That that matters. If you know, numbers matter, but other things do too.
With all of those things that Dirk, that NBA, the fact that I am advocating for YoungBoy is wild on this show.
Yeah, he's wild. Open Dirk.
That's a whole nother thing. But with everything that YoungBoy has not been and what he is, there is not a child, and I'm saying child under the age of 17 that is not a YoungBoy fan in some way. They might not be.
That's true.
So what
I think that's true.
So for him to not be on the Breakfast Club, not to have a J. Cole, not to have this Drake feature, not that, and every child 17 and younger has made a video or did something to YoungBoy speaks more than Dirk, with who does have all of that.
Here's my counterpoint to that. Here's my
fair argument.
To that. I think that all of those YoungBoy fans are also Dirk fans just as much. That's my first point. Second point is you can't really validate those streaming numbers because a lot of those are inflated from the YouTube numbers. If you look at the YouTube number streams versus what YoungBoy actually sells, two different
like
stories.
Spotify and shit.
It's like the Spotify and Apple Music conversation and all that good stuff. And then just thinking about just hit records. Let's not even think about who YoungBoy is featured with or who he's not featured with or whatever. If you just look at if you go hit for hit on just what is more popular, it's gonna be Dirk every single time. YoungBoy may have
the
more
reason I didn't say that
amongst the younger dudes, but as far as just who has more mainstream appeal and who has the bigger records, it's gonna be Dirk.
Well, mainstream appeal, I totally agree. That's why I brought up all that other stuff. The reason I didn't bring up who has the bigger hit is because I feel like that's harder to judge nowadays because of numbers, right? So you can look at a YoungBoy video, and if it has 100 million views, how can you say that's not a hit? You know what I mean? Just because it's not on the radio, just because it's not, you know, on commercials and being featured, and it's not playing at the NBA games and stuff like that, but it has 100 million views. So it's like, that's a hit. But then the Dirt version of a hit is maybe he gets, you know, 50, 60, 70 million views on a few different videos. One maybe features Drake, maybe one features J. Cole, you know what I'm saying? Maybe one features Vaughn. But you've just tripled, you know what I'm saying? Like, you far surpassed what that 100 million views was off of the one. You get what I'm trying to say? So it's like, it might slant it. And then especially like if you go, you know, if you do listen to the radio still, you're going to hear Dirk on the radio. You're not going to hear YoungBoy on the radio. So that slants your perspective of the hit also. So I don't know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I don't know how to quantify a hit really. So that's the only reason I didn't bring it up. But
I think the easier way to tell is if the song is, let's say, okay, in that comparison, let's say the YoungBoy video does have 100 million views, and then the Dirk song has only 70. If the Dirk song that only has 70 million on just a video is still has a high placement on Billboard, on the Billboard charts, but then I look on the Billboard charts and the song that YoungBoy put out has 100 million views, but it's not even on the Billboard charts, that's another telling sign for me.
And the Billboard charts do track streaming, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got a little recency bias. I had to do a prom send-off. I'm doing a photo shoot for this young man. He's very tense, very, you know, just, you know, it's family, it's the prom send-off.
Yeah.
You know, his mama has sent out the new iCloud invites, you know, map, the location, the weather, the details of the event, what, when, where. And underneath, she has also submitted a playlist. So when we go to the park for the photo shoot, I got my camera set up, the flashes and all the rest of this. And I mean, you could just tell he did not want to be there. This is, I mean, you could just, his face is just like, you know what, hurry up and get this over with. You know, let me just take these pictures and this. And I'm also got this big ass speaker that's like this JBL thing. And I'm playing the playlist that his mom selected. And we get to like the third song, and it's just like, I'm not big, like, I'm a good photographer. Like, I can take a great picture, but I can only take what you give me too. And if you're not giving me anything, I'm not finna waste your time nor mine. We're like less than 15 minutes into this, and I can just tell that it's just not going in the direction for another 45 minutes that I want to do. So I said, hey, bro, I know you're not a smiler. You team straight face. You ain't crack nothing. You like, what can I get you the joke? Get you? He like, nah. I was like, you want?
Nah.
He like, nah, yeah. He like, nah. And he quiet too. Like that, like he's like one word answers, just real quiet, you know. I was like, I said, what, you want to change the music? Like, I said, you control. I gave him my phone, I said, you control the playlist. And bro, he put it on NBA YoungBoy radio. And I wish I could share the pictures and the smiles and the high, and it was night and day.
That's amazing.
It was night and day, bro. And I'm like, and then, so my wife is with me too. So she's pulling the cart with the speaker and the flat, like, so, and then like at the end of the photo shoot, I'm like, damn, why you turn it off? She was like, it's just too much. And I'm like, what is too much? She was like, all of this YoungBoy, all of this, it's just, I'm overstimulated. And it was just YoungBoy after YoungBoy after young. That's all we listened to for 45 minutes. But he's also, this is his senior. That's what these kids are like. He was, and that was it for him.
Man,
you might get a point, bro.
I'll give it up. Like I can't stand him, but YoungBoy,
I can't stand him either.
The young niggas, they love him.
They do love him
specifically.
Yes, specifically, not the young niggas, the YNs.
Yeah,
there's a difference, and you niggas know who you are. Take them ski masks off in the summertime, nigga. You don't need to be walking down the street with a chopper, nigga. You don't need none of that shit.
You just made my point. Is the YNs bigger than the shiesty mask?
Right
Lions
now,
are
yes.
They're the same niggas.
Yeah, they just converted.
Same niggas.
They just converted.
They just converted. Before we close out, I saw some shit, and I don't know if it was real or not, but you never know. But it was these two niggas that was just on the elevator. Didn't appear that they knew each other, right? Because they're on opposite sides of the elevator. They weren't talking, nothing like that. 3 niggas run onto the elevator, all ski mask up. These 2 niggas pull ski masks out of their pockets and ski mask up with these niggas. I'm like, see, I just got my ass just on deck, like just in the event you need one, nigga. Like, this is YNs. Like, these are you niggas. Y'all love Young Boy, so I get it. I get it. All right, so maybe audience, you tell us. You let us know. Is it Dirk? Is it Young Boy? And did we get the other 2 right? Are the big 3 currently Travis Scott, Future Hendrix, and NBA Youngboy? Travis Scott, Future Hendrix, Lil Durk. You let us know. And did we get the other areas right? Do you agree with Marcus? Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Eric? Let us know what's up. This is the Big 3 episode of the bar exam. Marcus, it looks like you got something to say before we close out. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, this is crazy that Young Boy has made this fucking argument for himself. Just like Cole did it with what do we always praise Cole about? No features, right? Just bars. Young Boy, no industry, just fans.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
he's like a you know who he reminds me of? Like his grind, I'll say, in the way that he does the independent, really like he's like a Tech 9.
Kinda, yeah.
Because Tech 9 never went mainstream, like he never went to a major label. Like he had points of like kind of touching mainstream and flirting with it, you know what I mean? But like he just kept putting out music, kept doing shows, kept serving his fan base and eating. And that's the Young Boy approach, it seems like. Minus the show. This nigga's always in jail or on house arrest or some shit.
I could see that.
The day that Young Boy is able to tour again, that'll be something to see.
Crazy. Yeah. Well, yeah, man, y'all let us know. You know what I'm saying? But this is the Bar Exam. This is the Ethos Media Network. Please like, share, subscribe for all of the latest content. And until next time, Allie will be back next week, like I said. So, if you want to see me, though, you can watch Politics as Usual. You can watch Shoot Style Sessions again with my brother Eric. And outside of that, just tune in to the content. Love y'all. Peace.